Should you go along with a divorce that you don't want? That's what we're getting into today in this video. And it's a question really that only you can answer, but what I'm going to do in this video is walk you through several things to think about, some thought processes, some questions to ask to help you make the best possible decision for you in your situation. I don't know you. I don't know your ex. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I did in my situation. My ex asked for a divorce a year ago, and the ink is dry now on the divorce decree as of about 6 weeks ago at the time of this recording. And I didn't fight my ex on the divorce, even though it did completely catch me off guard and came out of the blue. And I can see some things in retrospect now that I didn't see at the time, but it really came as a total shock to me when she asked for that divorce a year ago. And we're going to get into a little bit of that, but mostly I want to focus on helping you make the right decision for you in your particular situation. Hi, I'm Jeff Campbell from DivorcedParentsClub.com, and I'm on a mission to help other divorced parents or potentially divorcing parents just like you navigate these troubled waters, whether that's navigating a relationship that's on the verge of a divorce, whether it's dealing with them after the divorce, whether it's dating tips that you're looking for after the divorce is done, whether it's parenting tips. We cover it all on this channel, and I'm glad you're here with me. But let's get into some of the things to think about if your spouse asks for a divorce and you don't want it. So the first thing that comes to my mind, though, is why would you try and hold on to somebody that doesn't want to hold on to you? And that's ultimately what made me let go with my ex and accept where we were at, accept the divorce, and accept that I needed to move on. And I'm honestly much happier having done that, having let go physically, emotionally, and everything else. But it did take several months for me to get to that place, really only somewhat recently get to that place. And so that's a place that, you may want to get to, or you may want to fight it and hold on tooth and nail. But there's a right way and a wrong way to hold on to it. And we're going to cover that in this video. So first of all, I want you to listen to them and hear what they're saying. Don't just wait your turn to talk. In our society these days, most of us have a tendency to just wait our turn to talk. We're not really engaged and present and really listening to what they have to say. And if they pick up on that, and a lot of people can pick up on that, they're going to really not feel heard and understood. And that's going to frustrate them, and that's going to just create more distance between the two of you. So really listen to what they have to say. Respect their opinion. It's totally okay if you have a different opinion, but you need to respect their opinion. You don't have to agree with it to respect it. They have a right to an opinion just like you do. The next one, and this is crucial if you don't want them to divorce you and if you do want to fix things, is you don't want to engage in any behavior that's going to push them further away. This is even more true if you think there might be someone else in the picture that is pulling them away. Whether that's a lover or maybe family members in their ear complaining about you or whatever. You don't want to give them an excuse to go further in that direction. So what do I mean? What are those behaviors that could push them away? Well, the first is, getting kind of, you're begging and you're pleading and you're like, surely if they could just see how heartbroken I am, they would feel sorry for me and want me back. Think about it for a second. That is really unattractive behavior when someone just seems desperate and needy and clingy. Not attractive. That's even more true for guys than it is for women. Women want a strong, solid, masculine man most of the time. And that is somebody who is unperturbable, as Coach Corey Wayne likes to say. Someone who is a rock, who's solid. They don't lose their shit every time something goes south. They maintain their composure. They come up with a plan to deal with whatever the situation is, and then they just take it step by step. They're not losing their shit all over the place. And that's what you need to be if you're a guy watching this video. You don't want to be needy or desperate or clingy, but that's true for women also, because that's still not attractive behavior, but I feel like it's worse behavior for guys. The next one is the flip side of that is you also don't want to get angry and accusatory because let's face it, that's still a way of losing your shit. Just, you're blowing off steam and you're getting all hot under the collar and you're yelling, or maybe you're throwing things like that. Is equally unattractive, just for different reasons than being needy and desperate and clingy. So you want to be emotionally solid, emotionally calm, stable. If you need to vent, if you need to have a place to unload what you're feeling, it's totally okay to do that. Do that with a therapist, do that with your friends, but don't do that with the ex that you're trying to convince to come back to you. Really unattractive behavior that will just push them away. And if there is another person in the picture, it's really gonna backfire on you and make them running into their arms. Now, in the conversation phase of this, early on, do ask if they are open to seeing a marriage counselor or therapist or a marriage coach of some kind. There's a lot of good ones out there. There's some bad ones out there too. But see if they're open to that. And they may be hesitant. When my ex asked for a divorce a year ago, she was totally opposed to that. I eventually did convince her to go, but she only went under the guise of trying to help us to communicate better. She felt like there was a loss of trust on her end. In retrospect, I can see there's total loss of trust on my end. I wasn't really doing anything untrustworthy, but she felt like I was, and I knew she was. So she wanted us to be able to focus on our communication as co-parents. In no way did she ever intend for it to be a way of patching things up. In fact, one time our therapist asked if she was open to that and she ripped his head off. Totally inappropriate. That's a side note though. So do ask though if she or he are open to seeing a marriage counselor, marriage coach, therapist of some kind, just to kind of like see if there's anything that you can salvage there. If they're open to it, take that as a really good sign, but don't push and don't go into it with the expectation of like, oh, after one session, we're going to be back together again. Don't go into it with that expectation. For starters, if they were so fed up with your marriage that they wanted to divorce you, you don't want things to go back to quote unquote normal. You want, if there's any chance of saving your marriage, you want to rebuild it differently and better than it ever was before. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if something changes, and that could be the influence of a therapist or counselor, could be something different. Maybe you read a book by Dr. John Gottman would be a great place to start. 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work is a fantastic book. I'm going to put a link to that on Amazon down below in the description if you're not familiar with it. And that book is fantastic, and literally every couple should read it. And if you can read it together, like each get a copy and kind of go through it together, excellent way to try and rebuild your marriage in a new, different, and much better way than it was before. The next thing I want you to do, and this might sound counterproductive, your first instinct is probably, to hold on to them with your life, and we've already covered how you don't want to do that. You don't want to seem needy and desperate. I want you to focus instead on you, and focus on being the best version of you that you can be. What do I mean by that? Well, instead of like focusing all your attention on them, when you focus on you, you're focusing on your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. You may, if you were married for a long time, chances are your friends probably have been pushed to the back burner, and maybe you were putting all of your eggs in your marriage, or if you have kids, maybe in parenting, and you, the person your spouse fell in love with, a lot of those qualities and things that you did that made you that person have probably fallen by the wayside. That happens a lot in marriages, especially over a long period of time. We lose track of our friends, we lose track of our hobbies, and we focus almost exclusively on our marriage and our kids, and then we get complacent about everything, and we just kind of in cruise mode and think everything's fine, and then bam, we get blindsided by a request for a divorce. And that's not uncommon at all. So get back to doing the things that defined who you were when you first got together with your spouse, whether that's, bowling or some other sport, whether it's going to the gym every day and, maybe you stopped doing that years ago and now you're, 40 pounds heavier than you used to be, whatever it is, get back to discovering the things that bring you joy. Because when you are filled with joy, that's naturally going to carry over into all of your relationships and they're going to see it. Words aren't going to do anything at this point. If your spouse is so fed up that they asked for a divorce, you could tell them and make them all the promises in the world. It's not going to do a hill of beans worth of good. You've got to show them consistently over time. It is going to take time. This isn't a quick fix. But if you can show them consistently that you're a different person, you're the person that they fell in love with, that person is still in there. Maybe once a week you go out with the girls or the boys and you have that night out, and maybe you're at the gym 3 days a week, and maybe you're playing golf with your dad on Saturdays, or whatever it is that brings you joy. Start doing those things, start doing them consistently. Focus on your own mental and physical well-being, and that will make you all that much more attractive to them. And if things don't work out, it'll make you all that much more attractive to future partners. I also want you to be 100% honest and transparent and really take ownership of the things that you may have done in the marriage to damage the marriage. After all, it takes two people to make a marriage, and it also takes two people to break a marriage. And yes, sometimes there are situations where one person does more damage than the other. It's almost impossible for one person to wreck a marriage all on their own with no help from the other person. And if you're in that mindset, they're like, oh, well, I'm great. Everything, I haven't done anything wrong. I want to really challenge you to think about that and think about your actions and some of the things that you may have done that you may not even see until you're looking at it in retrospect that have damaged the marriage. Because I can almost guarantee you there are things that you've done and there's things that your spouse has done. And you need to be really honest, open, transparent, and accountable for those things. I don't want you to just apologize profusely. That also looks needy and desperate. Apologize one time for specific things that you recognize that you've done that have damaged the marriage. Then focus on not doing those things anymore in the future and letting your spouse see that you're not doing those things anymore. Along those same lines, I want you to ask yourself, are they being honest and transparent with you? Going back to my own situation, it's weird to say this, but I can see now where my ex lies a lot. Maybe not all the time and maybe not to every person, but I've caught her in several lies at this point, both with our kids and mutual friends. And it's frustrating, but nothing I can do about it. I can only control my own actions and reactions. I can't control anything else. So I don't like to put energy into trying to control other things. Not going to happen. But I have noticed that. And it's unfortunate, and in some ways, when she and I have talked, it feels almost like she believes her own stuff. It's kind of like, she's told herself these stories so many times that she now believes it herself, and it makes it easier to justify why she asked for a divorce. Unfortunate, because until we are really honest with ourselves, we really aren't going to be able to move forward in a truly healthy way. But that's for her path. That's not my path. But ask yourself if your spouse is really being honest and transparent with you. If they aren't, it's going to be really hard for you to rebuild things with them. And then you also want to ask yourself, are you sure you want to rebuild things with someone who is not being honest and transparent with you? And whether they are being honest and transparent with you or not, I want you to be able to set clear and healthy boundaries and enforce those boundaries. And there may be things that they ask of you that you're not comfortable with. And you don't need to get angry. You don't need to get frustrated. You just need to say, hey, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm just not going to do that. And you can explain yourself, but stay calm, stay centered, stay in your frame, as they say. But it's totally okay to set those boundaries. You just have to enforce them. If you're consistently setting boundaries and then letting them, march right over them, that makes you look weak. And especially if you're the guy in this situation, a woman is never going to respect you, never want to get back together with you if she feels like you're weak and that she can just walk all over you. It's not going to happen. So set and enforce healthy boundaries. I got a couple more for you. and then we're going to kind of wrap it all up. But before that, I do want to say, if you're liking this video, please hit that like button, then smash that subscribe button and the bell notification button too. That way you get notified of future videos just like this one that I'm putting out. I'm putting out 2 videos a week, and I guarantee there's going to be future videos that cover things that you're going to want to know the answers to. Also though, if you have an idea for a future video, leave me that in a comment down below. I promise, right now at least, I can get to it. So let's keep going though. So these next 2 kind of go hand in hand, but they also might seem contradictory. So bear with me and let me explain. The first one is I want you to avoid giving ultimatums. What do I mean by that? Well, I want you to avoid doing anything like, well, if you're going to divorce, then, I'm going to keep the kids, or obviously that's not even really legal. But in the heat of the moment, it can be easy to say things like that, say things that you don't mean, or using the kids or the house or other things as kind of bargaining chips, or trying to use that as leverage against them. I want you to avoid ultimatums pretty much across the board. This is a dialogue, and like I said at the beginning, there may be a chance to save your marriage, or you may decide, you know what, why am I going to waste time and energy holding on to somebody that doesn't want to hold on to me? And you may get to that place too. So avoid ultimatums though. Avoid saying rash statements. If you're in the middle of a heated discussion and you don't think that you can keep your composure, say, you know what, I need a minute to collect my thoughts, and I'm going to circle back to this with you in 5 minutes, and then walk away. Take a walk around the block. It's not okay just to walk away and not say anything. That's essentially a form of emotional abuse, not unlike what they would call the silent treatment. Not okay to just walk away and not say anything, but it's totally okay to say, you know what, I need a minute. I'll be back in 5 minutes. You go to the garage, you go walk around the block, you go do whatever it is you want to do to kind of clear your head and get centered and calm again, so that you can continue with the discussion in a relatively calm and rational manner. And then the second one that, again, kind of ties in with that a little bit is it is okay to use bargaining chips. And what do I mean by that? Say, well, I hear that you want a divorce. I hear you don't want to go to marriage counseling. I hear you feel like there's no chance to save our marriage. I don't agree with that. But if you can do this for me, I will sign your divorce papers. And that this could be going to a marriage workshop like the kind that the Marriage Helper organization offers. It's a 3-day workshop. I'm going to put a link to that down below in the description in case you're interested in checking that out. But it could be, that they agree to go to marriage counseling for 6 weeks in a row. It could be something else. It could be, it could be something like, all right, well, I'll sign your divorce papers, but I keep the house. It could be something like that. But basically, you're giving them something that they want in exchange for them giving something to you that you want. And it is okay to do that. It's not okay to do that with like kids, but I do feel like, especially if we're talking about like marriage counseling, because you want to save the marriage and they don't, it is okay to say, you know what, I will sign your divorce papers, but you have to go to marriage counseling with me for every week for 6 weeks. And then at the end of that 6 weeks, if you still are 100% against trying to save the marriage, I will sign the paperwork. And you have to stick to your agreement though, just like they have to stick to their agreement. But it is okay to do that. Anyway, I hope this video helps you. I'm sorry you're in this situation. I've been in this situation too. And again, I gave it a year. I focused on all the things that we just talked about. And when it was clear to me that my ex had no intention of trying to save the marriage or come back to me, I had to walk away from my own mental health. I had to completely let go and detach from her and our marriage. It hurts because we have 3 amazing kids together, but that's what I had to do for my own sanity. And I've now moved on. The divorce is dry on the ink is dry on the divorce decree, as they say. And I just started dating a few weeks ago, and that's going great. And I'm moving on with my life, but I did give it a year before I came to that resolution. I hope your situation improves. I'll see you in the next video.